This is Tea with Botha.
In the early 2000s in this country, there was an organization that still exists, Heartlines. A lot of us would know about it. Watching our television, it would always be there. It spoke about different subjects, but its main or core business was that about positive values that they were embedding in our country. And today we have a guest that would actually talk more to us. He is a program manager and a community mobilizer. His name is Olefile. I would ask you to warmly welcome Olefile to talk us more or talk to us more about Heartlines. What is it? What do they do? Why was it formed? And where was it? And you'll recall that this is one of organization that really engaged us in different programs as South Africans on their values. And today he's here. I would like you to really welcome him and join me as we traverse this organization Heartlines. He will here to tell us more about it. Olefile, how are you in that?
I'm well. Thank you so much, Nadebota.
Uh,
So, thank you for welcoming me on this wonderful platform.
oh, yeah.
Yeah, well, Heartlines is a center for values promotion. Um, we looked into the to values that basically drive social behavior. We looked into, for instance, Ubuntu, and if you look at the concept of Ubuntu, it has so many expressions.
Yeah.
And the inaugural Heartlines series is we're looking at taking those expressions of Ubuntu and profiling them in a story that will drive conversation. And I often say that it's what gets spoken about that gets lived out in community.
Mm.
And if you recall, we had the films on SABC2, then they were followed by the big question, the conversation around the stories we have seen.
Mm.
We then moved on to challenge ourselves to say, we can't just talk about values.
Mm.
What do they look like when lived out in community? And so we had Hopeville, which looked at values in action. Then we looked at social issues such as money. Then we had a film called Nothing for Mahala, which challenges how you relate. We spend, borrow, or save money.
Yeah.
And then we looked at issues of the other, whether it is nationality, whether it is ethnicity and race. We looked at that particular minefield, and we then came up with what is called "What's Your Story?" And the film that drove that conversation is called Beyond the River. And currently, we are running a campaign called Fathers Matter, and we've got 6 standalone films that looks at this particular topic. Yeah, so that's who we are.
Can you take us through? I mean, I want to gravitate towards the Fathers Matter.
Right.
Tell us more. You said how many cities are there?
There's 6 films,
6 films.
and those 6 films looks at fatherhood across the country and across the spectrum, not just sometimes we often look at an issue and we tend to think that it only affects certain people in society. Fatherhood affects all of us, rich, poor, black, white, Indian, colored. It affects all of us. So in these films, you will see different stories for different settings, profiling this issue in different settings in our country. Okay. And and by so doing, we've been able to spark some crucial conversations, whether it's in the home, whether it's in a church setup, whether it's in a tavern. People are talking about this particular issue. So, yeah.
What are those conversations?
So the conversations is around, and it's basically based on research that we don't just thumb suck our campaigns. We first conduct research. We do peer reviews, and we then do our own conduct our own focus groups to ascertain as to whether this issue is resonating with society. And indeed, after our research unit conducted these exercises, we then concluded that this is a topic that we need to look into. And then if you look at research says that children who grow up without an active, positive, present men, not just biological fathers,
Okay.
are at a significant risk of being victims or perpetrators of violence, including GBV.
Themselves.
Exactly. And drug and alcohol abuse, mental health disorders, teenage pregnancy, and poor economic and educational outcomes. There could be more issues that comes up, or that are a result of not having a active, positive, present man in a child's life.
So it does not have to be the biological.
No, not at all. It doesn't have to be a biological father. It, we are saying that even after conducting that, and I'm sure you have gleaned from the state of the fatherhood report,
The recent one, the
recent
2024.
one.
Yeah.
I mean, the findings there are quite concerning.
What are those, briefly, those findings?
Because I mean, if you look at what it is saying, is that it's only 36% of children in South Africa who live with their biological fathers, while 40.3% live.
36, not 60.
That's 35.6% of children in South Africa live with their biological fathers.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So now you can see now that the remaining, if you then subtract from 100%, the remaining are the number of the percentage of children who grew up without their biological fathers. And then 43.3% live with men who are not their biological father.
43%.
43%.
Okay. Who could be their uncles?
Their uncles, grandfather,
stepfather,
and and their brother. I mean, older brother. If I think about ourselves growing up in Lehorusi, we didn't have a father.
Yourself?
Yeah, didn't have a biological father.
Have you met your father?
Yeah. I've known him.
You had no relationship with him?
At least I didn't have a relationship with him, but at least I compared to the rest of my siblings, I could then kimkombe and say, "There's your timer."
They would tell you, or
no. He used to come to the yard, but there was no relationship. There was no relationship. So at least in my case, I had a reference point.
Okay.
But who was that stable, positive? Look, we're talking about active, positive, present. So unfortunately, my biological father did not fit that category.
Positive,
yeah,
present.
So now, who was that active, positive, present father in my life? That was my big brother. Although he was not living in the home with us, he was working in Johannesburg while we were living in the Horusi. He was active. He was positive. He was present. Presence does not necessarily mean being in the home 24/7.
Or physical.
No. Your presence needs to be felt, even though you are not in the same household. So my brother's presence was felt to such an extent that I actually modeled my life.
He became your model.
He became my model.
Your whole model.
My role model.
Role model. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this and this is part of what Heartlines does.
Yes.
And who are you targeting? Who does Heartline look at, and why do you target those that you target? I mean, when I got to know of Heartlines, I said in my introductory remarks that it focused on, it should be on television, should have church groups, should have the youth groups. But I'm more interested to know as to what's the rationale of being in touch with those sectors or those communities.
Right. Sure. Good question.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful question.
Yeah.
It's a very beautiful question. I think,
thank you.
I think unlike other let's call content creators, movie makers or film producers, Heartlines seeks to not just create content that is consumed by the mass audience out there. Your film that goes, whether it is going on the public broadcaster or goes to a movie house. We like to take that content and bring it into conversations. So we create resources for different sectors, for the faith sector,
The faith sector.
for the schools, for education, and in to some degree, we do try to go into organizations, businesses, and so on.
Okay.
But the big audience here is the faith sector. Why? And
Interesting. Why?
why are we targeting the faith sector? It's because that's where attitudes and beliefs and behaviors are formed, or are informed.
Yeah.
So we try to, by all means, to resource the FBO, and we work with all of them, all faiths, right?
With a Muslim,
Yeah.
Jewish,
That's right.
Christian,
So if you look at
Baha'i,
if you look at we've interacted with different faiths and so on. If you look at even our correctional services trainings, you would have a Muslim imam attending those trainings, and what's important about our resources, that is like your discussion guides. Let's say take these films, for instance.
Okay.
These 6 films. Each film has got discussion questions. So you're not just watching for entertainment, you're watching for edutainment. Edutainment. So that's our distinguishing factor. We try to edutain instead of just entertain. And we try to move the entertainment into a conversation so that we can, see how behaviors can be transformed for the better.
Give me an example of the conversations that you have with faith-based. You said something which I thought was deep when you spoke about. That's where the things have been formed, attitudes, and but what sort of, when Olefile, what sort of conversations are there? What sort of questions that if you speak
Right.
to Jewish, if you speak to Christian, Muslim, Baha'i, what sort of overall, what sort of conversations ensue in such groups of we will come to, you spoke about schools,
Yeah.
businesses, we'll come to all of those. Share with us.
So
Yeah.
So the faith sector holds, they have influence. In every community, there is a church, for instance. In every community,
This is organized audience.
Yeah, it's an organized audience. So a day like a Sunday, you would have some gathering. It may not be the whole community, but that audience, no matter how few, it is basically at the mercy of the one who's standing in front of them on the podium, right? So some of the conversations, take for instance, Fathers Matter. It's interesting. It's interesting in terms of gender roles, gender roles and gender norms. It's interesting that I would have a conversation around, one of our key messages, for instance, on Fathers Matter, is both men and women can learn how to care for a child. Skills for parenting builds confidence. So then I would qualify the statement by saying, fathers, here you can change nappies, for instance. Do you know, even in a church setup, you have some frowning at that? Or take, for instance, the first 1,000 days, how it is important for us as fathers to be there for the first 1,000 days. Now, obviously, the first day I was there, I was party to the sperm fertilizing the egg. However, a lot of men, okay, and I'm talking in an environment where cultural norms are entrenched So much so they actually, are lived out even within the faith community. You find that people frowned at the remarks I make about my involvement with my children.
Oh, that's
From the first day when we discovered, hey, my wife is pregnant, massaging the belly, the tummy, feeling the kick. To some people, it is taboo.
So these are conversations that in the church, which would be seen as if you are challenging what the ingrained the ingrained cultural beliefs in the church. That these are discussions that you don't go to. These are hollowed grounds.
Absolutely. And so I often bring them back, take the Christian community, for instance, because, that's the majority of our audience, and not because we bias to other faiths. The majority of our audience is a Christian community. Now, there is an esoteric text there called the Bible, and you have Psalm 103, which says, just as a father is compassionate towards his children, so the Lord has compassion towards those who love them. Now,
and then he said, hallelujah.
I know you can say hallelujah to that. But listen, Dade Board.
Yeah.
Think about this text. It's an old text.
That's David, eh? Psalm 103.
Yeah. Now, listen to this. He's saying, as a father has compassion. It's written long ago. When you interrogate the text, it says to me, there was a time when men or fathers were compassionate. Compassion it's not masculine, right? It is not masculine. It is not macho. But it says, just as your fathers are compassionate towards their children, so the Lord has compassion to those he loves. So think about that and bring it to the here and now. Why is it that we have adopted a notion that a father should not be caring for their children? A father caring for the children and being compassionate is left to the mothers. Now I'm a father, again, dad.
Of two kids.
No, I'm just saying, me as a father, I am a father, and so I must appear strong.
Okay.
I must appear macho.
That's how we're taught.
Yeah. So the challenge within that space, as we are dealing with the material, the beauty is that we have the text as well. Where we take them to the text,
that supports
this compassion, this looking after children together as husband and wife, or mother and father of a child.
And these are part of the positive values that you are, as an organization, Heartlines, you are instilling. And what sort of, discussions come out? Do you have resistance? Do you have people in the faith community embracing, or do you have a backlash? What sort of, sitting there, what are the reactions?
I have an example.
Attitude?
I have an example from an organization, though, and it's not just your faith community. Yes, the resistance would be in a faith community. It's like, no, that I can't do that. I can't brush my wife's tummy. I can't speak to the baby in my wife's womb. That is absurd. That is taboo. That's the kind of resistance you would have. I've had an encounter in an organization when I was doing this type of conversation, and we were challenging the whole notion around ATM fathers.
Oh,
that the research shows that a lot of people are holding a belief that a man's role is to only provide financially. And I had one of the participants, female, standing up shouting and said, "Vele, they must provide. Kunjalo. They are ATMs. That's it. And exactly. And in one of our focus groups, a female participant said, if he does not have a job, he must not come home. I don't want another child.
Or meaning that, so they link fatherhood with providing.
Absolutely. So, how's Asibit? He shouldn't come home, because if he doesn't work, he's only a child.
And I'm not prepared to feed him.
Exactly.
And your response to such a reaction?
And we are facilitators. You're a facilitator right now. I can only respond by throwing it back to the audience. Remember, what gets spoken about gets lived out. So, as a facilitator, you hold a space and you allow the audience to dissect, to grapple, to wrestle with that held, that held belief. I mean, it's actually entrenched. It's not easy to undo deeply held beliefs, because they're deeply entrenched. So it's the change process. It can only take place if we continue wrestling day in, day out. So
it's a marathon.
It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. So don't expect change to happen instantaneously in that one session. You've done these things before.
It's not your instant coffee.
Absolutely.
You have to percolate this.
Oh wow, you're using beautiful coffee language. Now I feel like a nice cuppa.
Well, remember that our tagline is tea with water.
When I'm on a hard coffee, why don't you say coffee with water?
And at schools, what do you do?
Yeah,
we're moving the conversation. You are there.
Right.
These are beautiful, faith-based. What do you do at schools?
So in schools, the inaugural Heartlines campaigns did focus a lot in schools. Your 8 values. Remember, it was 8 weeks, 8 values, 1 national conversation.
8 values.
Remember, those were the inaugural ones. And
Mamela,
8 values. 8 values. Yeah.
What are those 8 values?
So those 8 values were, now Usantwara of God. It's compassion. It was self-control.
I'm sorry to do this. Yeah.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
Compassion.
It's okay. Compassion, self-control. It was forgiveness, honesty, and honesty. It was perseverance.
You will remember them.
I'll think of the other 3, but
they
had 50 minutes movies that really were well done. Really drove some really important conversations. So what we did in schools, we created life orientation material and reduced those films to about 15 minutes, because you don't have enough time in
with the department.
With the departments at that time, the Department of Education signed off on the material.
That's the inaugural.
Yeah, the inaugural one.
What's the state now? What's the state of play now?
The state of play now. Sorry that I'm both.
Okay, no, great. No, it's okay.
The state of play right now is that with Fathers Matter, we've conducted a research for a younger audience. I think it's like 10 to 16-year-olds.
10 to
16-year-olds, and I'll verify that just now.
Interesting.
But we are still. We have actually put pause or press pause on it, because Fathers Matter is unlike those 8 values conversation. The 8 values conversation was just have a conversation about values. But when you get to fatherhood, you're talking about a very touchy subject. So we didn't want to create any material for that young audience, although we've conducted the research and we had the approval from the research council, but we didn't want to create any resources as yet, until we've got all our ducks in the row, because you're gonna open a can of worms with these children, and we have to make sure we.
So that's not happening. It's still happening. It's happening.
That's not happening yet.
It's not happening. Is it like what? So are you planning it? Are you? It's in.
It's still in. It's in the back burner under the Botha. It's
the schools one. The schools one.
Yeah. It's still in the back.
Ultimately, what you seek to achieve with look, the faith-based. You said that. If I'm paraphrasing, you said that the faith-based, you ultimately want to change attitudes. You want to change the mindset. You want to change. I'm not sure about beliefs. Now, with the schools, what do you want to do or what do you want to achieve? Ultimately, the question is that what's your end game?
Wow. The end game is for people to live their better selves. That's the end game. Remember, at the core of who we are as an organization is the individual. It's looking at the socio-ecological model that says a person is a person in a family, in a community, and in a broader society. So you cannot change society if you don't look at the individual, right? And that's our focus. Our focus is that these individuals, where are they? They're in the home. So we have created, for instance, the What's Your Story campaign. We have resources for families to have a conversation about each other's stories. Do you know that we are living in homes where we don't know each other? So What's Your Story looks at that, and it also looks at, this family is part of the community. So where are they connecting and being community with each other? They're probably in the faith-based organization, or they are in a business. So how do we connect and know each other better as people? So our ultimate goal is for people to be their better selves in the home, in a community, and in the broader society. Because at the end of it all is to see our society thrive. Is to see our society thrive. Because if we live pro-social values out, if we live them out, imagine what kind of society we're going to have. We're going to have a better society functioning at an optimal level. There's so much in South Africa. There's so much good in our country. And imagine if, just imagine with me and dream with me. Imagine if not just biological fathers come back to the home, but social fathers step in where there is no positive role model in children's lives. Imagine if we all take hands together and ensure that our children have a better future. Imagine that. Imagine what sort of communities
Creating
are going to
healthy
have,
communities.
families are we going to have, and country ultimately.
So creating healthy communities.
Absolutely.
So you're saying that the school, you're saying all of these sectors, in fact, they are interdependent, but also they speak to each other, to one another. So you're saying that you can't live out the home, you can't live without the school, you can't live without the faith-based, because all of them should be speaking
they are concentric
to each
circles.
other.
They're concentric circles. They sort of like feed off each other. So you can't deal with them in isolation. That they brought. We are all interconnected. One way or the other.
Who supports Heartlines?
So our support is drawn from international funders as well as local funders. We try by all means to,
Is that where the business community comes in?
Not necessarily. So we create a resource for the business community. You're creating it so that the business community, because those people are people who come from families.
They are not an island sufficient unto themselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're part of.
So
and what you do with the business community.
So where the business community is able to afford, and obviously they're making profit, we would charge for the services that we render to the business community.
To train them as well, business community, or do you have the same programs that you have, these values are they part of your training, or what's your role with business?
Ideally, in a business, you would want to engage with your human resources, and those are the people that we would then train. One program that is taking off well within the business community is a What's Your Story program, because with What's Your Story, we're trying to build social cohesion within the business community, or within a organization or company. So who are the custodians of a healthy working environment? And that's your HR department. And in an ideal situation, you would want to have those who are custodians of such to be trained so that they can roll out the program. But that has not necessarily taken off as we hoped. We we then are called to come and do these facilitations.
What, the
ourselves.
training or facilitation?
Yeah.
With the what, employees?
Yeah, with employees, yes. Yeah.
So that business is not only, you're not only pouring money, but you're also saying, I love what you've just said about social cohesion. Ultimately, if one has to, in one word, to say, I wonder if you'd agree with me that when you look at Heartlines, its overall purpose, I mean, with all these values, that ultimately it's about social cohesion.
Absolutely.
So you're saying that the business is not only about them taking out money, but it's also about them being part of these conversations, because they are not just, I said earlier, I paraphrase Shakespeare, that they are not an island sufficient unto themselves. They also come from these communities.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And by the way, we're talking South African communities that are, I mean, you have high levels of poverty, high levels of inequalities. I mean, you have high levels of violence. And do you think that Heartlines, are they able to, I mean, all of the sketches I've just mentioned, do you think ultimately they would be able to address, I mean, the high levels of violence in our society, high levels of inequality, the high levels of poverty?
Sure.
Who do you think that that if you talk about the social cohesion, but are these realities
Sure.
that communities are faced with?
Yeah. Beautiful question again, that they brought up. It's with our What's Your Story program, we have what we call bridge leadership engagement process. Yeah. So basically, what we have been doing, it's bringing leaders from a community together for a
Is that where the bridge comes in?
That's where the bridge comes in.
Yeah.
So basically, we are bridging the gap between self and the other through personal storytelling, right? So our aim here is to create an environment where people can relate better together. We are not necessarily addressing crime and poverty and so on,
and the inequality.
Those are ginormous,
huge,
issues.
Herculean problems.
So we'd be shooting ourselves in the foot to say we are coming to address poverty in this community and so on, but we are aiming at what is attainable in the here and now. Is how we relate
the low-hanging
to
fruit.
How do we relate to better together as people living in this community? So through storytelling, we're able to facilitate that process. And somewhere along the line, these groups of people, and these would be your activists, your community leaders, or as it were.
Let's say your role as a community mobilizer comes in.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So they would then say, sure, we have been working past each other. We have been working in silos. How about we put our heads together? We scrum in a sense to then come up
the rugby language. Yeah.
Absolutely. So that we can come up with a way, or with programs that will benefit our community. But then that is a homegrown solution finding process. It's not something that Heartlines has imposed. We've only been catalysts in creating an environment where people can relate better together. So a movie like Beyond the River, for instance, will then give people a story that depicts how it looks like when people can know each other. Because sometimes what gets in between me and
boundaries,
is that I don't know where Mbuyiselo Botha comes from. He doesn't know where Olefile comes from. The things that makes you tick, the things that makes me tick.
We don't know each other.
But when we get to know each other, like in the film, these two gentlemen got to know each other. Then they could practice better for the Dusi Canoe Marathon. By the time they were on the marathon itself, they were able to function optimally. They overcame obstacles, yes.
These barriers that are artificial sometimes.
Sometimes they are artificial. Once you get to know this person is acting like this because such and such happened somewhere in their lives. Now you have compassion. Remember now compassion. Now you have compassion. You're then able to say,
You put yourself,
Slow
you
down.
you empathy as one of the, so you put yourself in his shoes, that he talks like this because probably he was raised under a diet of racism.
That's right.
But I mean, you're saying that when this conversation, they create an environment where he begins to appreciate where you come from. You
Yeah.
also begin to appreciate where he comes from, and then you build bridges.
I love
That's
that.
ultimately.
I love that. And that's in fact when we unpack bridge itself, if you look at how the bridge is built, there is a stone that actually comes in the middle of the bridge. It's called the keystone. Without the keystone, that bridge will actually collapse. Sorry.
Okay.
That bridge will actually collapse, cave in. Right? So your keystone is quite crucial. And we say that keystone is story.
It's your story. Oh, it's a
Your
story.
story and my story.
That's the keystone.
As we tell our story, the keystone that will hold us together is story. And I kid you not, that works. That I've seen that work even in my life, where I have friends who are from a different race than me. I have a white friend and I have an Indian friend, because I know their story.
Across the
I
color line.
can't generalize and say
One size fits all.
one size fits all. These connotations that are sort of mentioned about this racial groups.
So you work
fits this-
across all races, all
Absolutely.
race groups.
Absolutely.
You are- and what has been the reception in those race groups about or on Heartlines?
The reception on all races is that Heartlines is a good middleman in a sense. We've at least built up a rapport to be received by different people, different races, and the like. So we've seen warm receptivity in different races. Yeah.
Heartlines has been since 2006. When did you join them?
I only joined them 2008.
So you are, if one could say colloquially, part of the furniture.
I'm part of furniture.
And tell me, when Olefile,
Mm.
where do you see Heartlines in 10 years' time?
Yo. Yeah, I wish the CEO would be here to tell us where does he see Heartlines.
But what's your vision? What's your vision?
Yeah.
In 10 years' time, well, maybe let's be generous and say in 5 years' time, what do you think would have been, what would you think Heartlines would be, but also what ultimately would be, I as Olefile, part and parcel of this organization since 2008, where do you think it would be, or where do you want to see it? What's your vision?
Okay. I'll take a stab at this one. Based on what we are currently doing with the Fathers Matter program. And my boss, Dr. Gus Jaffet, says that we I don't he doesn't feel we're gonna create more programs. He feels we've got enough to carry on for the next while, because the projects that we are running right now, they have no beginning. They have a beginning but no end. They have a beginning but no end. If you look at social cohesion through storytelling, if you look at fatherhood through the Fathers Matter campaign, and if you look at values and money through money values through what we have been doing with the money values campaign, those three programs, are enough to kind of like keep us going. So my blue sky is seeing us making an indelible mark in the area of this last program that we are campaigning on, fatherhood. And to see more of us social fathers. I mean, there's been a good uptake in sports. I forgot to mention sports clubs. And that's the reason why I'm excited about Fathers Matter, is to see the successes we have witnessed with a sports club like Stellenbosch FC, where they took Fathers Matter. They did all 6 films. We had conversations with their B team, and there was an impact also on their senior team, and that club just took another shape, when those young players began to confront their issues around fatherhood and so on. It's a no-brainer.
I mean,
When we deal with the things that are not so nice, the issues that we are struggling with, so
the pains,
when we
our
deal with the pain,
frustrations,
we're able to then function at an optimal level. Yeah.
So you had Stellenbosch. What happened? What happened? I mean, and I'll tell you what. As you answer this, when Olefile, I mean, we have how many teams in the PSL?
Yeah, I don't know.
Say 15.
There's 15 now.
Say
yeah,
15,
there were 16.
There were 16.
Yeah,
Well,
as
AM
from,
has
as
just
from
been
last
fired
week, there are
up.
15.
Okay,
Yeah.
50. Now and by the way, look, there are millions of soccer players.
Yeah.
There are millions of them, and let's say the fact is that the millions of the followers here are black.
True.
So I'm just saying, let's start first. What did you do with Stellenbosch?
So with Stellenbosch FC, we ran a comprehensive program where we looked at Fathers Matter, and we looked at another program, Values and Money, because
these are young players
money values.
These are young players who have never, look, when I grew up, I'd never seen a million get a life. I've never seen a million. Now here are young people, suddenly your life is transformed. Suddenly you are confused. You now have suddenly a month 60,000. Now girls are around,
right?
Girls are around, booze is around, alcohol, drugs are around.
Yeah. So as mentioned, we did 2 programs: Money Values and Fathers Matter. With Money Values, we looked at 5 money values: honesty in earning, honesty in earning, responsibility in spending, wisdom in borrowing, self-control in saving, and generosity in giving.
Mfana wa tsama o di hopola kaofela wena usikhopha
no ke sponsor
ndiyawutshela ke isikhopha.
So we looked at that, because I think
these are the challenges.
What sportsmen fail to realize, that you're a shining star, but only for a moment. So you're earning a good salary now that could actually give you an opportunity to own a nice machine. But once you signed that contract, you have to satisfy the what you call it, the installment for the duration of that contract. But what they fail to realize is that contract may not last as long as the sports the club contract, your employment with a club may not last as long as this contract whether it is a BMW and whatever. Right? So the money values conversation was quite crucial for them. It opened their eyes, right? For the players, it opened their eyes. The Fathers Matter campaign, the Fathers Matter conversation, looking at the 6 films and all the topics that are around fatherhood. It was an emotional one. There are some who had positive father experiences, and others who did not. I heard of a player, from one of our facilitators who ran this process. One of the players actually called home, and told his father that, hey, you did not do or fulfill your fatherly duties on us, but I forgive you, right? And something switched. There's a switch there. There's a shift
that happens
when we have dealt with these issues, as I said earlier, in our lives. And you can see in the way that they actually presence themselves in the field of play. how they play the Stellenbosch FC club. They're a machine. They're a well-oiled machine. Obviously, there's training and so on and so forth. But I believe that it's more the unseen. It's more what we're going through, what troubles our souls, that tends to hold us back from functioning at our best. And that is the genesis, and that has been the process. And sure, we are eternally grateful to have done that with Stellenbosch FC, because then they've become like the example and the benchmark as we engage other sporting codes. We've just done a process with the KZN Cricket Board, and these guys are like saying, "Where have you guys been with
for these conversations,
for this conversation around fatherhood?" Because we are coaching these lighties, and they need to understand that, sure, some of them are making children, by the way. They're not just dealing with their own fatherhood issues, but because they have not dealt with their fatherhood issues, they are repeating the very same mistakes that their fathers made.
Some people say those that were hurt, they hurt others.
Absolutely.
So that they themselves have voids in their lives.
Mm-hmm.
So it's easy for them to even abandon their own, because they themselves have been abandoned.
Unawares, though. Unawares, because these are scotomas. There are blind spots. Until someone comes and points it out for you, say, Bona,
Reflect on your past.
Reflect on your past. Then they realize, hey, I've actually been walking on the footpaths of the one that I've been resenting. See,
the one that I said, I don't want to be the father that you was.
Yes. So that's one of the topics we deal with is dealing with father wounds. And we deal with forgiveness there. But do you know that if I'm holding grudges against somebody, that person could be my father, my sibling, my mother, whatever. You know what I'm doing? I'm holding a piece of paper. I don't want to see them at all. But while I'm holding a piece of paper, I am actually walking on their footsteps, hurting others on the way. So the topic of healing of father wounds, and which is part of our 8 key messages, to say even the church and faith-based communities can create space for people to deal with their father wounds.
Sure, Heartlines. Are you going to replicate this to the other 14 teams in the PSL? Imagine if you have an opportunity to speak to...
You said 14 and nearly 15.
Did I say?
Are you saying Chiefs is going to be relegated?
Look, I think you're being unfair. I mean, I did not say anything about Kaizer Chiefs. And all I'm... Is that your team?
Let's leave it. Let's leave it.
If it's your team, all my sympathies, man. I must be honest, I sympathize with you. Kaizer Chiefs in this day and age, I sympathize. Anyway, I mean, I'm sorry for you, what you're going through. I mean, the pain, the hurt you're going through. I'm very sorry.
You don't have to go on. Are we going to replicate? Let me just come in there. Yeah. We're hoping.
But you see,
hoping.
Look at here.
That's a dream. We're hoping that they will take this.
I wonder if PSL would be... Are you going to do the same with rugby? You spoke about cricket in KZN.
Yeah.
Rugby?
It's happening with rugby now. It's happening with rugby.
What's happening?
I think we've met with the Sharks. We have done the guys that
same thing that you did with Stellenbosch?
We are meeting with the Sharks. And in fact, there could be an opportunity with the national team.
With the national team. Our national rugby,
Mm.
who has been champions, who are winning throughout.
Absolutely.
And when... For me, what excites me, I must be honest, I'm excited with what Heartlines has been doing. Yeah. How do people make contact, get in touch with Heartlines?
Well, our website is there. They can go to www.heartlines.org.za and get in touch with us there. So all the information that you need program-wise is available there. info@heartlines.org.za is the email address that you can get in touch with us through. And we are a resource to the nation. We're a resource to the community. We are available, and we just want to we just want to be that conduit that supports people in living out their values, so that we can see our society just go from here to the
Greater
skies.
heights.
Yeah.
Greater heights. You have been able, I guess, to gain a lot from these discussions, this conversation. I hope that you are able to ask the question, what would South Africa be? What would we do if we did not have Heartlines in our midst? An organization that has been sustained by these values that it seeks to ingrain in our communities. And in the next 5 years, 10 years, I hope where you are, you'd be able to embrace Heartlines where you are and be part and parcel of that story. I hope that in your community, you would be able to mobilize, like what Olefile is doing, to mobilize other community members. I remember when we grew up, there was a slogan, I hope it still exists, of the Congress of the South African Student Organization, COSAS. The slogan says, each one, teach one. And for me, Heartlines is an embodiment of that slogan. I hope that you'll be able to get in touch with Heartlines so that they become part and parcel of your community. Olefile, thank you so much for being part of this conversation. I hope that South Africans will be able to continue to support your initiatives. I mean, I am gobsmacked. I am excited by the work that you do, and seeing that South Africa, we know that we're facing enormous, Herculean challenges as a community. I mean, poverty, drugs, HIV. I mean, you name them, inequality, GBV, femicide, all of them. But the conversation has to start somewhere. We can't just fold our arms and hope that manna from heaven will fall. On that note, I hope that you'll be able to continue this conversation wherever you are. Thank you so much once again, Olefile, for joining us and making this conversation extremely rich. Thank you, Dad.
Thank you so much, Dad.
Thank you.
This is Tea with Botha.